Hi, and welcome to Historical Influence. Here, we explore amazing stories of people and events that shaped our history. Join us to learn, discover, and get inspired by the past in a fun and engaging way. What forges a legend? Is it being undefeated in every battle? Creating one of the largest empires in history before the age of 30? Or having your name echo through millennia as the benchmark for greatness? For one man, it was all of the above. He was a king, a conqueror, a supposed deity, and a military genius whose tactics are still studied in military academies worldwide. By the time he was 30, his empire stretched from Greece to northwestern India. He is Alexander III of Macedon, but history remembers him as Alexander the Great. How did a 20-year-old prince from the small kingdom of Macedon rise to conquer the known world and become a figure of myth and legend? Alexander was born into a world dominated by two forces: the fractious but culturally rich city-states of Greece and the colossal Achaemenid Persian Empire. His father, Philip II of Macedon, was a brilliant and ruthless king who transformed Macedonia from a peripheral territory into a dominant military power. Through a combination of shrewd diplomacy and relentless military campaigns, Philip subdued the Greek city-states, culminating in the decisive victory at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BC. Following this, he established the League of Corinth, uniting most of Greece under his command as hegemon or supreme commander. Philip's grand ambition, the project he would pass to his son, was a pan-Hellenic invasion of the Persian Empire to liberate Greek cities and avenge the grievances of the past. This was the world Alexander was born to inherit, one of immense ambition, forged by his father's sword and strategy. Born in Pella in 356 BC to King Philip II and his formidable wife Olympias, Alexander's childhood was steeped in legends suggesting a divine destiny. His mother, Olympias, claimed his true father was Zeus, a story that may have emerged to underscore his superhuman potential from birth. On the day he was born, the great temple of Artemis at Ephesus burned down, an event later interpreted as the goddess being busy attending his birth. His education was as exceptional as his birth. Raised by tutors like the strict Leonidas and Lysimachus, he learned to read, fight, ride, and hunt in the tradition of Macedonian nobility. At 10, he famously tamed the wild horse Bucephalus, detecting the animal's fear of its own shadow when no one else could. An overjoyed Philip declared, "My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedon is too small for you." From age 13, his mind was shaped by one of history's greatest philosophers, Aristotle. In a classroom set in the Temple of the Nymphs at Mysa, Aristotle taught Alexander and his companions, boys who would become his future generals, about philosophy, medicine, logic, and art. He instilled in Alexander a deep passion for the works of Homer, especially the Iliad, a copy of which Alexander would carry on all his campaigns. At 16, Alexander's training became practical when he was left as regent while his father campaigned, and he quickly crushed a Thracian revolt, founding a city named Alexandropolis. He fought alongside his father at the pivotal Battle of Chaeronea, where at just 18, he led the cavalry charge that broke the elite Theban lines. However, his path to the throne was not secure. A feud erupted when Philip married Cleopatra Eurydice, a full-blooded Macedonian noblewoman, making any son she bore a potential rival to the half-Macedonian Alexander. At the wedding feast, Cleopatra's uncle toasted for a legitimate heir, enraging Alexander and leading to a public clash with his father that resulted in a temporary exile. He returned, but tensions remained.
In 336 BC, at the age of 20, Alexander's world changed forever when his father, Philip II, was assassinated by a bodyguard, Pausanias. Immediately proclaimed king by the army, Alexander acted ruthlessly to consolidate his power. He executed potential rivals, including his cousin, Amyntas IV, while his mother, Olympias, had Philip's last wife and her child burned alive. With news of Philip's death sparking revolts across Greece, Alexander marched his army south with astonishing speed, quelling rebellions in Thessaly and reasserting Macedonian authority. After destroying the rebellious city of Thebes as a brutal example, all of Greece was cowed into submission, and Alexander was named commander of the war against Persia, ready to fulfill his father's grand design.
In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia with an army of around 48,000 men, throwing a spear into the soil and declaring Asia a gift from the gods. His 10-year campaign of conquest was a masterclass in military strategy. He won his first major victory against the Persians at the Battle of the Granicus. Marching down the coast of Asia Minor, he besieged and conquered cities like Halicarnassus. In Gordium, he famously undid the unsolvable Gordian knot, hacking it apart with his sword and thus claiming his destiny as the future king of Asia. He met the Persian king, Darius III, for the first time at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. Despite being outnumbered, Alexander's tactical genius led to a decisive victory, forcing Darius to flee and leaving his family and treasure behind. After a difficult 7-month siege of the island fortress of Tyre, he marched into Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator from Persian rule. There, he was famously declared the son of the god Amun at the Siwa oasis, and founded the city of Alexandria, which would become a major cultural hub. The final showdown came in 331 BC at the Battle of Gaugamela. Again facing a vastly larger Persian army, Alexander's brilliant tactics broke Darius's center, routing the army and forcing the great king to flee one last time. With this victory, the Achaemenid Empire effectively fell, and Alexander captured its great capitals, Babylon, Susa, and the ceremonial heart, Persepolis.
After the conquest of Persia, Alexander's challenges became internal. He pursued the fugitive Darius III, only to find him assassinated by his own satrap, Bessus. Alexander gave Darius a royal funeral and positioned himself as his legitimate successor, a move that began his adoption of Persian customs. He started wearing Persian dress and introduced the practice of proskynesis, a bow or prostration before the king. This was deeply offensive to his Macedonian and Greek soldiers, who saw it as a gesture reserved for gods and a sign that Alexander was deifying himself. Tensions boiled over into violence and conspiracy. During a drunken argument in Samarkand, Alexander infamously killed Clitus the Black, the man who had saved his life at the Battle of the Granicus, after Clitus accused him of forgetting his Macedonian roots. Plots against his life were uncovered, leading to the execution of respected officers like Philotas and the assassination of his veteran general, Parmenion. In 326 BC, after an arduous campaign into India and a hard-won victory against King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes, his exhausted troops finally mutinied at the Hyphasis River, refusing to march further east to face the rumored massive armies of the Nanda Empire. A disappointed Alexander was forced to turn back, the easternmost extent of his conquest marked. His journey back through the punishing Gedrosian desert cost his army thousands of lives, another strain on his men's loyalty.
Alexander returned to Persia in 324 BC to find his empire in disarray, with many of his governors having misbehaved. He executed several as an example. To create harmony between his Macedonian and Persian subjects, he arranged a mass marriage at Susa,
where he and his senior officers married Persian noblewomen. Shortly after, tragedy struck when his closest friend and companion, Hephaestion, died in Ecbatana. Alexander was devastated, ordering a period of public mourning and an extravagant funeral pyre in Babylon. His grief may have contributed to a decline in his health, already weakened by years of campaigning, heavy drinking, and severe wounds, including a near-fatal arrow to the lung. In Babylon, while planning a new campaign to invade Arabia, Alexander fell ill after a long night of drinking. A fever took hold and worsened over 14 days until he could no longer speak. On June 10th or 11th, 323 BC, in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II, Alexander the Great died at the age of 32. The exact cause remains a mystery, with theories ranging from poisoning to diseases like typhoid fever or malaria. Alexander's death plunged his vast empire into chaos. He left no clear heir, and his generals immediately began fighting for control in a series of civil wars known as the Wars of the Diadochi. His dream of a unified empire collapsed, eventually fracturing into several Hellenistic kingdoms, most notably the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt, the Seleucid Empire in Asia, and the Antigonid dynasty in Macedon. Yet his legacy endured far beyond the political fragmentation. His conquests initiated the Hellenistic period, spreading Greek language, culture, and thought across a vast area from Egypt to India. This cultural diffusion created a new syncretic civilization, blending Greek and Eastern traditions to produce phenomena like Greco-Buddhism in Central Asia. He founded over 20 cities named Alexandria, which became centers of trade and learning. His life became the stuff of legend, coalescing into the Alexander Romance, a text that became one of the most popular and widely translated works of the pre-modern world, second only to the Bible. For centuries, military leaders from Hannibal and Pompey to Napoleon would measure themselves against him, his name forever the symbol of unparalleled military achievement.
Beneath the grand legend lie fascinating details. Alexander's childhood hero was Achilles, and he reportedly slept with a copy of the Iliad, annotated by his tutor Aristotle, under his pillow. The famous horse he tamed as a boy, Buphalus, meaning ox head, carried him all the way to India. When the horse died of old age at 30, a grieving Alexander founded the city of Buphala in his honor. In Egypt, he not only accepted the title of pharaoh, but was also given an extensive list of traditional royal names, such as Protector of Egypt and the brave ruler who has attacked foreign lands. During his visit to the tomb of Cyrus the Great, whom he admired, Alexander was enraged to find it had been desecrated and had the guards swiftly executed. Finally, during his stay in Corinth, he famously encountered the philosopher Diogenes the Cynic. When Alexander asked what he could do for him, Diogenes simply replied, "Stand a little to the side. You're blocking the sunlight." A response that delighted Alexander so much he reportedly said, "If I were not Alexander, I would like to be Diogenes."
In just 13 years, Alexander the Great redrew the map of the ancient world. His boundless ambition was matched only by his military genius, and his vision of a hybridized culture reshaped civilizations. While his empire died with him, his legacy proved immortal, leaving an indelible mark on history that continues to captivate and inspire 2 millennia later. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that shaped our world.